back to our final forum of today, Emerging Technologies for Sustainable Growth. This forum will be moderated by Mr. Alexi Thomas, EY India Technology Consulting Partner. Mr. Alexi Thomas is a partner at EY Technology Consulting. Prior to joining EY, he has worked with large consulting firms as well as global banks. His expertise lies in data engineering, building big data systems, data reservoirs, data warehouses, data integration platforms, data architecture, and large-scale data migrations within banking industry. Alexi holds a postgraduate degree in business management from School of Management, Pondicherry University, and has a Bachelor of Technology degree from Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, Kerala. It's my honor to invite Mr. Alexi Thomas to the stage with a round of applause. Thank you, Bipasha.
Thank you so much, and thanks to ASSOCHAM and the illustrious alumni of Jadavpur. I'm really privileged to be here. So, am I audible? Yeah, okay. So, I was sitting there and thinking it's going to be really hard for me to follow the previous session, right? It was really informative. But there are two things that are favoring me. One is that I have a flight to catch at 7, so I have to stop this session at 5. And the second is that I have a very knowledgeable panel who will be assisting me, so I'm going to introduce them. Let me start with Mr. Aparoop Sengupta, founder and chairman of AAG Group, former executive chairman of the board and global CEO of StarTech, NYSE listed company. So welcome Aparoop Sengupta. Mr. Shekhar Sanyal, Director and Country Head, Institute of Engineering and Technology. Welcome, Mr. Shekhar. And Mr. Vipin Roy, Head Digital Connectivity Power Siemens Limited. I just got the name wrong, right? So I get confused with Vipin and Vivek all the time. So apologies for that. My apologies. Welcome, Vivek. So I thought we will do our session slightly differently. We will do it as a panel discussion and we will keep it interactive. So feel free to ask questions, audience. But I thought before we start, I'll set the frame, right? So I'll take about 5 to 10 minutes to set the frame. Can I get the clicker? So our topic for today is emerging technologies for sustainable growth. So how do you define sustainable development? In my mind, sustainable development. Hope that is better. Okay. So the topic for today is emerging technologies for sustainable development or sustainable growth. And sustainable development, in my mind, the way I define is, it is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Often, sustainability and ESG are interconnected, right, or talked in the same breath. ESG as environment, social, governance. And ESG can be seen as a set of standards or criteria for companies and organizations which investors, regulators, and clients and stakeholders are using to direct companies towards the right behavior, as well as to direct financial flows. We had the economists talking earlier how there is a lot of finances getting directed towards sustainable development, and ESG is one of the key levers that financial services organizations are using. So in a nutshell, ESG and sustainability is balancing the needs of the society and business and operate within the constraints and limits that the planet holds. UN, United Nations, has defined a comprehensive set of 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, that cover people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. To reduce poverty, improve health, education, reduce inequality, spur growth, all the while tackling climate change and protect our planet's oceans, forests, and diversity. In my mind, in summary, this is what sustainable growth is about. So what are the macro trends, right? What are the broad market trends? We heard some numbers, so I thought I had to put a number as well. And I put the number of 100 trillion, right? So that's the amount of investment that is required for us to transition to a low carbon economy worldwide. The eagle-eyed, the people who keep attention to numbers will note that actually the world GDP is that, right? I mean, it's about 104, 105 trillion, something like that, right? If you look at it in nominal terms. So that's the kind of investment required for us to transition to a low carbon economy. Look at some of the trends. Asset managers globally have already pledged 130 trillion of assets under management to achieve the net zero objective, but that's not sufficient. Governments have brought in policy and regulations, right, especially in Europe. Even in India, if you look at it, SEBI has brought in the regulation that top 1,000 listed companies will have to start reporting on their ESG from this year onwards. So this is becoming really important. So government action is there, but is that sufficient? And the last trend, I mean, there are 6 trends called out, but the last one that I wanted to point out is the climate risk, or management of climate risk, and management of biodiversity going hand in hand. That's another key trend that we are seeing in the market and we are seeing globally. So coming more closer to the topic for discussion today, right? Emerging technologies driving sustainable growth. I have listed 8 of them there. Renewable energy, circular economy, that is the reuse and keeping the materials in the economy for long. Sustainable agriculture, or even I would say precision agriculture, green transportation, sustainable materials, artificial intelligence and big data and IoT, which is much more closer to my heart as well as Vivek's heart. We will talk about that. How can we use artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data to actually optimize emissions? And then health and wellness and education as well. Now, I've picked 8 of these topics, but that's not a comprehensive list by any means, right? It's a very large, evolving list of emerging technologies that we need to consider as we transition our economies, our organizations, our companies, our countries to a more low carbon based world economy, so to speak. And finally, this is the last slide before we open up for panel discussion. India has a really ambitious aspiration, right? So by 2070, we want to be a net zero economy. We have committed that 40% of the installed power capacity will come from non-fossil fuel sources by 2030. Or if you look at the last one on the left side, 100% collection and management of solid waste in urban areas by, actually next year. Are we going to achieve this? What kind of investment do we need here are all key questions that we need to ask. Finally, before I open and we'll start the panel discussion, there are also countervailing opinions as well, right? So should we be investing in ESG? Is this the most important thing? If you look at the American right, there is significant pushback. If you look at Indian organization, look at the MSME sector, what's the cost of really doing all this, right? So there is significant pushback coming from different sectors as well. But I think I'll put my bias on the table as I go to the panel. My bias is that this is going to be the theme for our generation and probably the next generation, right? There's a significant opportunity here. You saw the number. If we have to, pivot and invest $100 trillion, then this is what will be the theme for our generation and next generation to come. So with that, we will start the panel discussion. And let me pose the first question to Aparoop as I go back to Sid. So Aparoop, maybe you could give a broader introduction of yourself and talk about some of the key themes that you're working in terms of sustainable growth and how you see technology emerging in some of the areas that you're working in.
Thank you very much, Alexei. I asked his name, what is Alexei? So he very fondly said that he belonged to a communist family and he was named after one of those presidents of Russia. So if you imagine, this whole idea of equitability is very much there in a large part of this panel, being from Bengal and communism and Kerala. So I'm just setting the context right. And I'm not going to use any PowerPoint presentation. I thought that what is this whole idea of sustainability? And what I did was I quickly asked ChatGPT. Have you heard of this AI tool? ChatGPT. It gave me all the answers. Sustainability means renewable energy, energy storage, smart grid, sustainable transportation, green building, circular economy, and carbon capture. Boom, I'm done. So then I thought, what the hell am I going to speak? Because I'm doing something very different. And I was trying to correlate as to what I'm doing. And before I do that, being a very significantly large Bengali population, I'll read this poem and I'll correlate that sentiment in English and translate what went in my mind, having a checkered career, where I wanted to retire at 50, but I actually was 3 years late and I'm right now 58, so last 5 years I've been working on this. So it goes like this. Bohu din dhore, bohu krosh dure, bohu ব্যয় করি, বহু দেশ ঘুরে, দেখিতে গিয়েছি পর্বতমালা, দেখিতে গিয়েছি সিন্ধু, দেখা হয় নাই চক্ষু মেলিয়া, ঘর হতে শুধু দুই পা ফেলিয়া, একটি ধানের শীষের উপর একটি শিশির বিন্দু. So in English, if I translate that you know what, I have gone around the world, I have spent a lot of money, I have distantly traveled, I have seen the mountains, and I have also seen the rivers. But oh my Lord, I have not seen in my backyard the beautiful scenery of the dewdrops in the morning on the leaves. So that exactly what happened is when we are talking of sustainability, I want to just embark on this idea of sensibility. So if you are talking of sustainability, how can you create a sensible population that is going to be the global citizens of tomorrow? So with that idea, I embarked on a mission of building a school in Bishnupur, which is going to be a global school in a tier 3 cities. The ambition is very lofty to create global citizens from there. So that's one part of it. The second is to create an institute of micro-entrepreneurship, which is to give capital and clout to the smallest and the tiniest of suppliers. As an example, somebody sells samosa and sells 200 samosas in a day, earns a very paltry living of 5,000 rupees a month. Can I give that person capital, maybe a larger kitchen, and a bunch of 50 college-going kids who can actually take a hot box and distribute it into the dhabas? So suddenly the 200 samosas can become 20,000 samosas. That guy's income suddenly goes to about, say, 30 or 40,000 rupees a month. And there you create a sustainable and an equitable organization. So I am going back to the core of who does this work, who are going to work on this, is the citizens of today and the citizens of tomorrow. So that is a calling that has actually led me to come up with this lofty goal that if I have a biological son, can I create at least 10,000 kids in my lifetime who will be better citizen and will go around the world and make the flag of India fly high. So that has been the inspiration, that has been the personal story with which we started. And in the context of sustainability, so far as I'm concerned, I have just written a few points. Everybody talked of temperature, nobody talked of temperament. Am I right? So if I want an AC, which is okay, it can be there, it cannot be there, so can we take a day without AC? I think jhatka helps in life. The COVID taught us many things. we could see the skylines of Mumbai. Some of them could see the distant mountains. So that has taught us that it is possible for us to do. It is probably not temperament, but we were forced to get into that temperament. So before it becomes too late for us, it is important for us to understand that this world needs to be better, and we need to work on that. And I'm working with our team of students who in class 4 are talking of deforestation and water recycling and all those kind of stuff in a small town in Bishnupur, and they are giving that in English and they are recording that in the video, and that is what we are seeing sitting probably in New York. The other thing is, I talked of equitability. Equitability, at the core of equitability is empathy. I think on the lift we were discussing that we should give opportunity to women. It's not about equal rights, but it's about equal opportunity. So can we create that kind of an environment? So with all this mission and all these ideas of what I've collected over my corporate life, I thought the best way to create an institutional ecosystem is to build a school and build an institute where I give, on the one hand, money and mind, on the other hand, I give my passion and emotion to create the future citizens of India. So that's a brief introduction of myself.
Thank you very much, we applaud, the mission that you have, Aprup, and also to the previous, the esteemed Jadavpur University alumni who spoke earlier. It's not just about commercial causes. Here is an example of a non-commercial cause that is actually helping the planet and helping humanity. Thank you for that, Aprup. Shekhar, can I request you to do the same and talk about the areas that you're involved in?
All right, thank you. Yep. Thank you. I think more importantly, Alexi, than introducing myself is to introduce where I'm coming from and the background and why I am here today. I work for an organization called the Institution of Engineering and Technology. About 15, 20 years before, it was called the Institution of Electrical Engineering, or the IEE. We are headquartered out of the UK, and I take care of the work that they do in the South Asia region. Now, why is it important to talk about the IET? Because how does it flow into what we are doing? The IET is today, as of this year, 152 years old. It's been working with engineers. It's the world's largest society of engineers and the oldest as well. So we work with engineers and create a platform for engineers to make an impact in society. Our mission is engineer a better world. Now, one of the things that engineers are bad at is talking about the impact they make on society. So if you talk about doctors, lot of things are talked about doctors. But I just ask you to go back from this morning, just this morning, and think about everything that you have done today. When you woke up, you might have had the phone giving an alarm, looked at it, looked at your messages. If you had an AC, if you used hot water, if you drove here, and now that you're hearing me in an air-conditioned hall, amplified my voice, it's because some engineer someday decided to solve a problem. So that's the kind of impact engineers do, and the IIT's mission is to get engineers and give them a platform to be able to make that impact wider and bigger. In this roadmap, when we turned 150, we created a 2030 plan, which was the area that we'd focus on for the next 10 years. And we looked at 5 big challenges that we want to help solve. And these are big challenges. We can't solve it. We need everybody to come together. But we identified these 5. And the top on that is sustainability and climate change, followed by healthy lives, digital futures, people-centric infrastructure, and productive manufacturing. These are the 5 areas that we want to help and solve. And because of that, one of the things that we do in India is that we work very deeply with educational institutions. In fact, I am proud to say that Jadavpur University is one of our academic affiliates. So we work with them. We also do accreditation, or academic accreditation of various courses. Plus, we are one of the largest institutions providing chartered engineer from the Engineering Council UK. So that's about the education part. But there is also the need of creating a platform for engineers to solve on ground here for India. So we also run 3 think tanks. One is around future technologies, one is around future of mobility and transport, and the third one is around future of work. Now we started the future technologies as the IoT panel, which is where we started, and I'm proud to say that in India, the IET's IoT panel has been instrumental in shaping the narrative around IoT. In fact, inputs from this thought leadership platform has gone into 14 of Government of India policies. So we have been instrumental in giving the right nudge to the government in using technology. How it helps is because we are not an industry body. We are a body which is made up of individual members. So therefore, there are no agendas to push beyond looking at decluttering the roadmap. And therefore, the government is also more open and amenable to it. On the other side, we also run India's largest undergraduate scholarship for engineers. Last year, 22, we had 29,000 students apply for it. It's a prestige scholarship, which means out of those 29,000 students, one won the scholarship. So they went through a 4 level. So we are looking at engineering leaders of tomorrow. And finally, I'd like to say, we also run a large conference called Future Tech Congress every year, which is focusing on what's the roadmap around using future technologies. And bringing it back to sustainability, Alexi, what makes us also very interested, aside from that we are trying to solve it, the IIT has got observer status in COP 26 and 27 and going forward. So we stay there, look at what is discussed in COP, and then we are asked for a reaction to say what's working, what's not working. So that's from where we are coming, and that's why I'm here today.
Super. What a wide range of areas that you're working on. I hope that we'll be able to cover at least a few of them through the interaction. Vivek, first of all, I'll tell you that I'm never going to forget your name again, and I'm sure the audience will remember your name as well. So Vivek, you bring a very different perspective and an experience working with some of these technologies that are emerging as well. Please, could you talk about that?
Sure. So, good evening, everybody. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I really thank ASSOCHAM and the Alumni Association of Jadavpur University to give us this chance, and Alexi, of course, to take me in the panel. I'm working with Siemens for the last 18 years now. This is my 3rd company, and every day we do new things, we learn new technologies, and that's what has got me stuck onto this organization for such a long time. And at Siemens, basically, I'm responsible for the digital connectivity and power portfolio. So in the age of digitalization, or today I can confidently say that the Honorable Prime Minister saw a vision of digital India, and I think we are far ahead of most of the emerging markets as well as the developed markets in terms of the digital landscape that we have built for our nation. Just look at what UPI has done, just look at what Aadhaar has done, etc. and everything. So extremely proud to have been associated in this journey. So a little bit about what I do in Siemens is, like I said, in the age of digitalization, you need connectivity. And today, all of us sitting here are connected to the internet, are connected to some or the other cloud infrastructure that is taking the data, processing the data, and giving you a feedback, right? So Mr. Aparup just spoke about ChatGPT, right? And this is a new fascination or a new sensation that is going on right now. And the basics of ChatGPT is, it is an open AI platform, open artificial intelligence platform. So what is very important for us to know is, in digitalization or in the quest or in the journey of digitalization, it has to be more of a shared ecosystem or a shared consciousness. Today, we may laugh on the output which ChatGPT is giving, but trust me, the power of ChatGPT is, and I'm not advocate of ChatGPT or we don't have anything to do with ChatGPT, I'm just talking on the technology aspect. The power of an open AI platform is probably what we don't realize today, but a few years later, as the AI engine will get more and more mature, probably the world is here for change. Trust me. So, earlier there were islands of communication or islands of automated technologies that we always had. Today these islands are coming together, and these islands are getting connected to the cloud. By islands I mean manufacturing islands. Today if you want our manufacturing to proceed or go ahead or be the engine of our economy, somebody spoke about MSMEs and so on and so forth, connectivity is important. They cannot be isolated. They need to be on a single platform. They need to send data to a higher level system. And trust me, friends, the data that today, we are talking about big data. What is big data? Yeah, it's the data that we are generating in the shop floor of a chemical plant or a pharmaceutical plant or any manufacturing area or a manufacturing island, and making sense out of this data such that it gives us a sustainable growth. Yeah. So big data also adds extreme value to sustainability. Or I can say that it's one of the cornerstones to sustainability. Now I come to the very, very important topic, and that's why I'm actually invited on this panel. And I'm sure we've all realized the power of connectivity, the power of sitting inside a basement of a hotel and calling an Uber cab, yeah, which waits for you outside. But a very, very important factor that we always forget is, in this age of cyber physical infrastructure that we are leading into, cyber security is also extremely important. And just like my other panel members spoke, sustainability has to be something like a mindset. Yeah, it has to be something that we do every day. Do you want to keep drinking out of a plastic bottle? How do you segregate waste? Similarly, cyber security also has to be a mindset. It has to start with us first. And trust me, I was just reading an article a few days ago where the Honorable Prime Minister has said that India needs a total of 500,000 cybersecurity professionals. 500,000. 5 lakh. As of today. I don't know about tomorrow. And the count is 65,000. So this brings me to a very, very important point, and that's my third point, is the skill development. So first is the awareness, and second is, after you've had this awareness, and I can completely correlate it to sustainability, because if we are not secure, we are not sustainable anymore. Let me tell you. So my third point is skill development. So today there is a dearth of professionals in the space of cybersecurity. And probably that's what we will probably discuss. And thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Vivek. I think that's a very important topic, because you don't often think about cybersecurity when you're thinking about sustainability, but clearly as India races towards a $10 trillion economy, we'll be increasingly digital And a lot of our data, citizens' data, clients' data, stakeholder data is going to be digital. Protecting that data is a very important aspect. So, Shekhar, let me circle back to you. Can you talk a bit more around the technologies around mobility and transportation? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges that you're seeing?
Thanks, Alexei. See, in my view, we saw one of the previous panelists talk about the fact that when you look at sustainability pie, transportation is not an area which is getting investments in India. But in my view, if we do not solve the transportation problem, the whole sustainability issue around India is always going to be a challenge. Now, what are the key areas which we have to look at? Mobility is going to be the biggest driver of sustainability. However, when you look at mobility, the challenge is that everybody who talks about mobility, whether it's in sustainability or otherwise, most of them reside in urban cities. And therefore, their conversation comes from an urban window of existence. But India, 70% of it is rural. So therefore, the whole paradigm completely shifts when you move to the conversation around mobility in rural India. Now let me give you some facts, and I'll ask you a question as well. Fact one, that 70% of rural India is daily wage workers. All right. With that nugget of fact, I would ask you to hazard a guess as to how much do you think in terms of actual cost and notional cost and loss of opportunity put together to photocopy one sheet of paper in rural India? Any guesses? Sorry? One page. 2 rupees. All right. Any other guesses? Can you be louder? Exactly. So how much do you think it is? Give a number. 5 rupees. 500 rupees is actually closer because it's actually 100 rupees. We did a research. It's 100 rupees of notional cost to get a single sheet of paper photocopied. There are 2, 3, 4 reasons behind it. One is every village does not have a photocopy shop. So which means that if you want to get a photocopy, it's not that you will walk over to the next shop and get it photocopied, you have to go somewhere. So there's loss of income. If you are a daily wage worker, you lose that money, you go off and then do that. Once you reach there, then there is no electricity. So photocopy doesn't work. Then you might have to go back again. There's a cost of fuel. All those things to get that service is what is increasing the cost. Now use that for the paradigm of rural India. In urban India or urban localities, the whole idea of mobility is moving people and goods from point A to point B at the cheapest, fastest, most decarbonized way. But moment you take it to rural India, the whole story is about moving services at the least cost to the person so that the person actually does not have to move. So the whole paradigm starts shifting, and that's when you start building sustainability into the conversation. So that's one area that I think is very important, which gets lost in the conversation, primarily because everybody who's talking about sustainability talks from an urban angle. The second part which I want to talk about is the battery. Electric EVs are going to be one of the key reasons how mobility is going to change, but at the heart of the EV is the battery. And the battery story needs to be worked out. So there is a whole conversation about should we, for example, do a rapid charge or battery swapping. My thought process is it is not or, it has to be and. So battery swapping will only work if we build smaller batteries, if we get those batteries to fast charge and create a standardization around the batteries, which is currently not there. I will give you a live example which happened today. My son is in Bangalore, which is where I stay. He's got an Ather bike, which is an electric bike. And he called me just after lunch, and he said, I have taken my bike to 4 charging points in Bangalore, and all of those points when I reach there are not working. for whatever reasons. And he's now, when he called me, he was left with 1% charge on his scooter and he couldn't move. The fact is that while these were not working, there were other charging points available there, but which were not, the Ather scooter wouldn't work or charge with them. So the whole interoperability, battery swapping, or rapid charging is hugely dependent on how we standardize the whole thing. And currently, the push or policy around that is not strong. So that is one. The second is also how we are looking at alternatives of battery technology. So, we have just found huge reserves of lithium. But by the time we look at lithium, we mine it, we get the things done, it is going to be another 7 years when things start happening. Till that point of time, we are still dependent on China as the biggest producer of lithium. So that's a story which is going to happen. And finally, finance. The insurance of EV vehicles does not take into account the fact that battery forms about 40 to 50% of the electric vehicle. And if there is no sustainable policy around insurance, so there is always a risk of how the battery will perform, what happens when it gets work, if it doesn't work. And right at the end of it, what we also need to talk about is what do you do with the end of life around the batteries. So how do you repurpose it, rework it, how do you dispose it? All these are conversations which are gaps which are there, and unless we have actual holistic conversations about these points, the growth of EV and therefore the sustainable impact of that is going to be slow. So with the room filled with such eminent people, and each of them being an ambassador, I will urge all of you to go and talk about this more and speak about this more and use whatever influence you have to get this moving faster.
Thanks, Shekhar. I think thanks for bringing in the context around the ecosystem and interoperability, which is so critical for the success of sustainable growth and climate management, I would say. So, Aparup, inclusivity and equitable growth is kind of close to your heart. So my question is, how can technology be an enabler as you work with, let's say, underserved and sometimes underprivileged community?
See, I'll give you two examples. One is when you're working in a small town, you necessarily don't get good trained teachers. An equivalent example, I'm giving a Calcutta example, is a South Point teacher or Hare School teacher. They're very astute, they understand things, but you may not get that caliber of teacher. But lo and behold, I was very surprised that in these small towns also, there are very well-educated people who have not got the opportunity to serve. So this teacher probably need training. Now, in that training, we are using and in fact, we are launching that technology. I call it Around the World in 80 Hours. You know Jules Verne's famous book, Around the World in 80 Days? So we have come up with a mission called Around the World in 80 Hours. So here we are creating a partnership with maybe some of the finest teachers in the world, because if I'm talking global school, it is important for us to have access to those teachers. Now, those teachers can't work in the midnight to help teachers in the daytime for schools in India. So what do you do? So the teacher basically has a form, which is a video form, and every teacher, by the way, has an iPad or maybe a tab in the school. It's part of the joining kit. I mean, it is unheard of in a small town. So they basically give a video question, because you don't have to write, there could be articulation issues, so they go ahead and give that. And then one of the specialist teacher, maybe a physics or a mathematics, or maybe an educationist, and the question is how to handle irate children, especially when there are two cohorts and I'm having a challenge in the class, so how can I handle it? So that lands up in that specialist teacher's desk. That teacher has an avatar, a virtual avatar, and she has created that in 5 minutes. By technology, you can do that. So she types the response, and then the system converts that into the avatar speaking and giving the response, which lands up into the teacher's desk with the potential answer. Now imagine this whole question emanated in Bishnupur. The teacher may be in Boston, and the next day morning the teacher gets an answer from a Boston expert. That's global education hitting the hinterland, and we are using technology. Okay? And this whole idea of AI is the avatar. That means when that teacher is speaking, depending on the transcript, the lip is exactly syncing. And by the way, the teacher can now speak in Nepali, can speak in Bengali, can speak in Cantonese, can speak in Mandarin, and now you think this whole idea can have a global ramification. So this is something, a revolution that is going to happen. And in fact, I get excited because you may live longer than you think, because I'll create an avatar of myself, I'll scribble some notes in the diary, and my grandchildren will probably convert that and make me come alive in 2090, when I'll not be there. So that is a possibility, and we are sitting at the crossroads of those cutting edge, bleeding edge technology. So that's one example. The other example is, I'll give an example of the micro-entrepreneurship. Bishnupur is very famous for many things, and one of them is their art and craft. And one is the weaving technology. It's called the Baluchari silk. If there are ladies, they'll understand. It's a very premium silk that is made by the artisans and the weavers of Bengal. Now, point is, if you look at the demographic, not too many people are wearing saris. And they sell it at maybe 2,000 rupees. It lands up in a shop in Bishnupur who sell it in 6,000 rupees. So you feel good because you have gone there and shopped. Dekho mere ko Baluchari sari mil gaya. And then when you come back to Bombay, it might cost 25,000 rupees. So the weaver gets 2,000 rupees. The actual consumer pays 30,000. There is a huge arbitrage of profit that gets distributed in the value chain. So now, one is that. You can solve that problem by probably enabling them in the e-commerce engine. That's one. That's a very simple thing. To do it, the ecosystem exists. But the disruption is as follows, that the Westerners don't wear saris. So can I get a French designer and create a top, which is a Western top, with the Baluchari fabric, and create that and sell it globally? Now, suddenly your market has opened up in a very significant way, and that weaver who's in abject poverty, and there are only 200 families, one of their son works in our school as an admin officer, can change those lifestyles of those 200 weavers and maintain the craft that has been there for hundreds of years and now lashing into the shores of the global shores, pretty much like the Lindor chocolate that you use, which is Swiss confectionery, handcrafted, but it's available in almost all shelves in the world. Can we not do that? So that's some of the very bleeding edge and a big hair-raising, audacious goal. I call it BHAG. Okay, right? So, I mean, we are trying to think, and if you think, you can probably do a little bit. So that's the whole idea.
Super. Thanks, Aparupa. In fact, when we were at lunch, I was talking to the sir sitting in the front table, and education came up as a topic of conversation. And here is an example of using, delivering it at high quality, at high scale. And the micro-entrepreneurship example is also a great example. Thanks for that. So let me come to you, Vivek. So Industry 4, we have all heard of this term, right? Industry 4.0. Humans are connected. Now machines will be connected. So what do you think are the challenges that we will be facing? I mean, you spoke about cybersecurity briefly. Can you elaborate on that? What are the challenges and what are the solutions as well?
Yeah, so I think the panel discussion is extremely entertaining, or rather, it's very enriching. Sorry, entertaining is the wrong word. It's very enriching, actually, because this is open learning that's happening on this platform. So basically, if we come to Industry 4.0, it's nothing but earlier we had the manufacturing island not connected, and all the automation or all the connection was happening on the enterprise side, on the ERPs, etc. So first people started mechanizing, then they started automating, and now they have actually started digitalizing. But digitalization or digitization is not automation. Yeah, automation has already happened. Okay. What is Industry 4.0? Basically, it is connecting the shop floor to the top floor. And the reason why we connect shop floor to the top floor is because we want to make sense of the data. There's extreme amount of data getting generated on the shop floor, and this data needs to be used, for example, a simple example is for preventive maintenance. Yeah. Earlier in the manufacturing space, I give you a very simple example. Suppose you had a press machine which was delivering a certain output per day. Yeah, it had certain jobs per hour, and hence it had an 8-hour shift or a 12-hour shift, and it used to generate certain output. What used to happen in the past? There was a roster maintained. There was a maintenance engineer who used to check how many hours has this machine worked. This was all written on a handwritten paper, and depending on the judgment of that operator, a maintenance schedule used to come in for that machine. Now here is where I want to give you a difference between automating and digitalization or digitizing it. So the automation was always there. The press was working automatic. All right. So the press machine, if you just press start and you give the input, it gives you the output. The operator was just feeding the goods, or the goods were also fed automatically depending on the supply chain, whatever they had on the shop floor. Now here is where the difference is. Today, this data that is getting generated from this machine, if it is fed back up to the enterprise, and at the enterprise it is sent to the cloud, where there are platforms that will give data out and inform with the characteristics, yeah, with the AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning, will give you an output in a manner that this particular machine will come under maintenance in the next 50 hours. So rather than having a piece of paper that could have been manipulated, you are getting this automatic feedback from the cloud or from your intelligence that has got generated on the shop floor, and you also inform the maintenance department that now this machine in the next 50 hours, so in the next 2 to 3 days of shift, it needs to go under maintenance. This is the power of data, and this is digitalization. Yeah? So the automation is mandatory for digitalization. Now I would like to come to the topic of cybersecurity. Now, since there is a lot of data that is getting generated, and these islands are getting connected, these systems are getting connected, this throws a lot of vulnerabilities. Because anybody, now since your machines are connected, anybody or everybody who is sitting in the dark web can get access to your machine, can get access to your data. And trust me, I don't want to put the fear in your minds, but all of us, all our information is available in the dark web. You all know what happens in the what happened recently in the AIMS incident, yeah, where AIMS was hacked, and then actually they had to run AIMS 6 days. They had to run the OPD on a manual piece of paper because the systems were not available. So such vulnerabilities come in if you do not take cybersecurity along in your digitalization journey. So my stress would be that digitalization is certainly important. It's the way ahead. Without it, you would not be able to proceed ahead, or you would not be able to move the enterprise, move the economy ahead. But please think about cybersecurity. What are we doing to secure our data? And securing data is extremely important. I come to the last point here, and which is extremely important. So when we talk about Industry 4.0, we are also talking about our supply chains being completely digital. Yeah. So do you all know that every manufacturing, by the way, needs supply chain, right? There is an input and you need a supply chain for the output also. And I can tell you very confidently that if cyber security is not managed very well on the supplier side, there is a lot of vulnerability that could come inside your plant or inside your manufacturing or inside your enterprise. So supply chain cybersecurity is also catching up very much, where organizations like ours actually have a lot of suppliers feeding in their goods, their material into our manufacturing, and then we producing, etc., and all that. We insist all our suppliers to be cyber secure. So I think it's very apt. This subject of cybersecurity and sustainability go hand in hand. Absolutely.
Thanks, Vivek. I have exactly 14 minutes left, right? So want to open it up for audience questions a bit. There's one question that I have in hand, so Shekhar, I'll direct this to you. Many European countries and China have adopted wireless charging of EVs while driving by developing a strip on highways similar to wireless charging. How do you think it can be possible, and how can it be adopted in India?
I am not the technical expert, so I don't know how it will get adopted and whether it's possible or not. But the fact is that today there is electrification for using electric freight vehicles, which is one area which I did not talk about, between Ahmedabad and Bombay, which is happening right now, which will allow large freight vehicles to travel between Ahmedabad and Bombay, completely electric vehicles, and that's the roadmap that the government is working on. And that's a huge challenge around sustainability also. 5%, only 5% of our goods move through the roads, and 35% of our diesel is used on our highways. So it's hugely disproportionate. And having freight-based electric vehicles which run freight or large volumes is something that we have to do. And whether wireless charging will be the answer or not, I'm not really the person to talk about it, but the Ahmedabad-Mumbai highway is possibly a place to look for it and see what's actually happening on the ground there.
Thanks for that. And Swarnendu, very, very interesting question. So thanks for that. So please, sir, yeah. Would you like to? Yeah.
Regarding the electric vehicle, sustainability, is it infinite? Looking at the EV, we require batteries, and batteries have to be charged. So we look at land, and within 100 kilometers, how many battery stations can be built in a metropolitan city? Where is the land available? So the technology obsolescence is a disruption. Technology invention or technology upcoming of new technology also disrupt the old technologies, and that disruption takes a lot of time to get within the system itself. So how do respond to this area and enlighten us actually to make it as a prolonged sustainability in the ecosystem?
So thanks, sir. One thing is that even before I came to this forum, I was told that I'm coming to a very opinionated group here, so to be careful. So thank you for that. I'm sure there will be lots of...
No, absolutely true. And you are right, sir. Land is a big challenge in case of setting up EV infrastructure, charging infrastructure.
Metropolitan city I'm talking about.
No, not just metropolitan city. And our land conversion rules are very archaic. So also getting land from private hands into making infrastructure is also a huge challenge. If you look at our roadways itself, you see that. And I'd like to bring this, and this is a crux. Maruti did not become the force it was because it sold very good cars or high quality cars. It became the force it was because of the service infrastructure it provided, because it was available everywhere. And till the time EV service infrastructure becomes like that and interoperable, we will always have slowdown around EVs. So there is the battery problem, there is the infrastructure problem, which is under which is the land problem, and on which is the policy. Now, if you look at the policy today from the government, it's focused on manufacture of EVs, but it does not take into account any regulatory mechanisms around the huge ancillary set of manufacturing which works beyond the manufacture of the car itself. So the OEMs and the other bits, there is no regulatory mechanism to encourage them to work towards making EVs more sustainable and making it more cheaper. So that's not working. And there is a role of the government to work on that, and each one of us as well. So you're right, that's a big stumbling block. I completely agree. So one piece of information, the IET owns the standards for EV charging for UK. So the EV charging standards are owned by the IET. We have gone to the government and Indian government and given it to them, said that you can use this as a benchmark to start working on it. But the standardization framework of the Indian government is very fragmented. There are multiple agencies. So there is some things which needs to be worked on. Unfortunately, it's complex, but hopefully it's political will which will cut through it, and market forces. So it will be there, but it's slightly slower.
Just Vivekji, the data, be it Excel, PowerPoint, is generated from a platform called Windows, which is used by 90% of the population of the world. Windows itself is not secure. From the Windows, this goes to Google Drive or the even. I don't know how much secure cloud is. When your basic architecture is not secure, how can you have the cyber security? Ask any IT guy, he will hack the password from the, go into the registry of Windows. Anybody, young guy. How, if the platform is not secure, how do you expect the cyber security to work? Entire platform is on Windows, which is not at all secure, including even SAP.
Absolutely. So
and the password can be hacked.
Fantastic. I think it's a very awesome question, I would say. Thank you so much, sir, for... but there's a very long answer to this now. I don't want to kind of hold you guys here till dinner. But I just want to say that cyber security is not a destination, it's a journey, number one. So first of all of us need to start somewhere. And sorry, but I want to bring this or tie this back to sustainability. Because sustainability is not a destination, it's a journey, right? Though our Prime Minister has said by 2070 we will be carbon neutral, nobody knows. I don't know how many of us in this room would be alive till then. Yeah. So to just answer your specific question, yes, there is no silver bullet to cybersecurity, just like there is no silver bullet to sustainability. But first thing is it has to start with awareness. So since you took the example of a password, right? We all use internet banking. We all use internet banking over here. Yeah, my father still loves checkbooks, but most of us are using internet banking here. In the internet banking space, by default, the website tries to tell you to change your password every 15 days, right? But let me tell you, even after you change the password every 15 days, you're still vulnerable. Because ultimately these passwords are stored somewhere, right? So there is a new concept, and it's not new, it's most organizations or most enterprises are using it. It's called as multi-factor authentication. So even after you enter your password, there is either a OTP that comes to your mobile phone. Yeah, many people argue that OTP is also not safe because it's a server ultimately sending you a passcode, and that server also could be hacked. But things like face recognition, things like iris recognition, things like thumb biometrics, etc. So I would say that multi-factor authentication is one of the answers to password theft and hacking of accounts. Yeah. Again, though I love this topic, but I'm still learning about it. Yeah. So this could be one of the answers. And the second thing he spoke about is platforms or systems like a Windows or a Google Drive, etc. Now here I would just like to give you, I would like to tie this topic. First, I will not talk about technology. I will first talk about awareness. And I don't know how many of you all recently read an article where government has said, do not disclose the Aadhaar card number. Am I right? I think most of you all have seen it, have read about it. They said, only disclose the last 4 digits of your Aadhaar number. Rest everything should be masked, right? Now, I'm sure everybody has read it, but how many of us follow it? I'll give you a recent example. Some of us as friends, we wanted to go to a picnic. We were about 30 people. And one of the friend who was extremely, gung-ho about digitalization, he said, मैं सबका आधार कार्ड अपलोड करवा देता हूं और मैं होटल को भेज देता हूं, so that check-in will be very easy. He opened a Google Drive, and out of 30, 25 people uploaded their Aadhaar card on the Google Drive. Breach. This is breach. See, that's what I'm saying. We read, but we are not aware. It's not in our consciousness. So I told my friend, first of all, you have to be thankful to God that you are in a country where there are no GDPR guidelines still. Okay. We are just making the GDPR guidelines now. Yeah, that's the personal data privacy guidelines. You cannot take anybody's Aadhaar card like this. This is privacy. This is breach of privacy. So I told my friend that immediately stop that Google Drive, give the Aadhaar card back, delete all the information, because this is not secure. So I would advise everybody as a cybersecurity evangelist that please be aware of what you are giving as data and what you are transacting as data. Because that's where you are actually creating vulnerability. So, you have already given your Aadhaar card. Nothing else is required, right?
So thanks, Vivek.
I hope I tried to answer that question, sir.
Can I just add one more thing to this? I keep saying that cybersecurity experts propose and humans dispose, unlike the man proposes and God disposes. Yes. If you were to look at each of your phones and see how many of you have not updated your, whether it's Android or iOS, to the latest version, if you do not do that, you're obviously opening up a window for cybersecurity hacking to happen, because the latest security updates have not happened. So look into this room and look at how many of you have actually not updated your own thing. So cybersecurity experts have proposed the solution, but finally humans have to do it. If they don't do it, then nothing that cybersecurity experts can.
Thanks, Shekhar. I think it's all about behavior changes. I'll give you the opportunity to close. I think, so what I'd like to do is, as closing, is give you each 1 minute to talk. Basically look into the future, look over the parapet and see what is coming in the short term, in the long term. So Aparup, if you want to start.
So well, I can only say one thing, that there's a phrase that I very often use is believe, behave and become. So whether it's sustainability or life or our day-to-day affairs or transactions, we have to start the journey of believing. And we hail from a country which is spiritually very strong, has a checkered history. By spirituality, I don't mean religiosity. This country has been a kind of an example to have a living civilization for over 5,000 years. It has been plundered, people have destroyed, but we came out as a race after all the difficulties. We were fortunate to have seen at the crossroad of an intersection of a slice of time that will be remembered in history as one of the fascinating periods of times that has gone through disruption. I still remember as an engineering student write personal letters to my mother. An inland letter used to come as a reply after 14 days. From there we have gone to instant messaging. So that's the kind of transformation that we have seen in our lives. But we should, at the back of all this sci-fi and technology and sustainability, let us try to hold on to the sustainability of the love that we all have been brought up with and keep that brewing in our hearts and minds. And as long as we do that, we will be remembered as an example in the society. I was visiting New York just a few weeks back and I was meeting some of them, and there was a discussion on social security where at a certain point in time the government starts giving money. And here we are, we have a built-in social security of a mama and a chacha and a bhatija who will land up, a person falls ill, 14 people will show up. If something happens to somebody, I mean, there is a bunch of alumni who will rush to that spot to help that person. So that whole intrinsic idea, the bedrock of our love and our culture as a nation, a diverse nation, irrespective of caste, creed, or religion, that has been nurtured, needs to be nurtured, and we cannot forget that. And that, to my mind, will be the bedrock of sustainability. The rest of the stuff will happen. We'll adopt something, we will copy something, that's going to happen in the world. But that's the bedrock that we should be very proud of. And I think in tomorrow's day, it is not too far away that people will take examples of how we have built a great society and a culture that has lasted for thousands of years. So that's my closing remark.
Thanks, Aprupai. I should have given you the closing remark for the panel. That would have been a good closing remark. But Shekhar, over to you.
Right. I think one of the things that we need to take into account, which is very important in this whole roadmap for sustainability, is one is the large, we talked about large parts of sustainability, but it's also important to start looking at sustainability in what we do on an everyday basis. All right. I will tell you, we run a Future Tech Congress, which is a large event just like yourself. I had this lofty aim that I wanted it to be the first sustainable tech event in India. To educate the hotel to become sustainable was such a big challenge. To get them to say that you cannot serve water in plastic bottles, or to have the signages are not in flex. So we actually did everything digital, not have any paper. Forget us. Educating our partners were a huge task. So each of these sustainable efforts that we'll have to do has to go, every step that we take has to be sustainable, and that's a mindset change, and that mindset change needs to happen. The second thing that I want to say, Alexei, is sustainability will not happen in the way technology is playing today without digitalization. But India, specifically India, globally also, we have got a huge challenge about digitally skilled workers. So if you were to look, one of our partners, Teamlease, has just released a report which says 30 million digitally skilled workers would be required in India by 2026. This year alone, in 23, there will be 2.3 million jobs which will not be filled in AI, blockchain, and cybersecurity because there are no digitally skilled workers. So for the work that you are doing, Aparup, I would think that you should bring this as a huge part of training those people, because the digital skilled workers, there are two things: they can come from anywhere and they can sit anywhere and work. So it's a great thing. So I would appeal to you to work on that. So these are the two things that I want to talk. And finally, also to start thinking, when we think about sustainable efforts, about not the large corporations. Large corporations have got lots of money. They have a duty towards society. And they are in a position where they can divert part of their thought process and money into sustainable effort. But look at the MSMEs and the smaller ones who are surviving from day to day. How do you make them understand that sustainability is not about being good? It's not about being woke. Sustainability is good business. So if you look at Larry Fink, he just talked in BlackRock, he just talked about that $4 trillion worth of investments have just happened in sustainability, and it's only going to grow. So sustainability is good business, but that needs to get translated to the SMEs and the MSMEs so that they start looking at it as good business investment rather than something that will actually impact them on the short run. So these are the things that I wanted to bring to forth.
Thanks, Shekhar. And Vivek?
Yeah, so coming from a technology background, I can tell you that the future in terms of technology is only going to evolve. I mean, I don't know what's going to be coming up in the future. Nobody could predict COVID, right? So everybody had plans probably to get married in 2020, have a nice, fabulous wedding, and then suddenly COVID hit, and people got probably married on the web, looking at each other's face. But jokes apart, I can tell you that something about the future, especially coming from the industry, we are talking about the industrial metaverse. I think most of you all would have heard about metaverse. So it is creating a complete virtual reality or virtual you. So I think Mr. Apurub already spoke about that creating your own avatar. And the industrial metaverse is going to actually transform us into the future. But even before getting there, I would really like to conclude on one single point, that the future is actually something that we create, right? And the future has to be a more shared ecosystem than being any one technology or any one player or any one topic that takes shape. It has to be a shared ecosystem. Sustainability cannot be sustainable if it is not shared ecosystem. If what he spoke about the having an event where sustainability was absolutely on the top of the agenda, but the hotel never thought about it, right? The hotel kept serving water in a plastic bottle. So this is what I mean, that all of us are in it together. I think COVID has taught us this lesson, that it is no more about whether you're technically rich or technically poor, whether you're a graduate or not, whether you're in the top of the society or in the middle of the society. Everybody is equal. I think shared ecosystem would be my take on having a very sustainable future.
Thanks, Vivek. And so what were the key words? I'll just summarize with the key words, right? Apurub talked about spirituality. I think that's a really good one. Shekhar talks about sustainability is good for business and about behavioral changes. And Vivek spoke about ecosystem and interoperability. I think these are good keywords for us. If those are the only takeaways from today, I think these are good takeaways. You've been a great audience. Thank you for being interactive, and a great panel as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexa Thomas, and thank you, panelists.